The journey to the championship brings back the essence of short track action as the field hits the Commonwealth under the daylight for the very first time. In virtual Virginia, we welcome you to the virtual Richmond Raceway and the site of the third race of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series in Season 6. We're happy that you're joining us on the KBueno Racing Network. As always, we're up in the broadcast booth. I'm Kenneth Bueno. We'll be joined by Francisco Bacalhau in just several moments. But in a consistency-based playoff format, the true display of each of the first two races has created two distinct categories in its own right. Those who wrestle for the top and those who are fighting to stay alive. Tonight at Richmond, we'll see both of them going at it at full stake in a pivotal short track race. We had Rockingham just last Wednesday where we shortened the track, but we upped the stakes. Tonight, we make the track even shorter at about 0.75 miles. We get to amp up the intensity, plus the physicality as we get deeper into this playoff run. Speaking of which, let's look at the schedule to see what lies ahead on the road to a championship in the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series for Season 6. We've got Richmond tonight after Rockingham and Chicagoland to open up the playoff format. Then we go to Daytona under the lights, our first and only super speedway race of the playoffs. Usually we're accustomed to seeing Talladega directly in the middle of the playoff fight, but instead it will be the World Center of Racing. We'll have Sonoma as the wild card road course race. It's the first and only of its kind in the playoffs this season. We'll head it down to Dover, then we'll go to Pocono, and then to Phoenix, and then Homestead Miami Speedway in South Florida to close out the entirety of the Season 6 2024 4Wide Racing schedule. Now, Richmond, of course, being the shortest track out of all of them in the playoffs, is going to pose a very significant task for those wanting to move forward into the championship. But before we do that, let's take a look in the rearview mirror and tell you exactly what happened story-wise at the Rockingham Speedway in Rockingham, North Carolina. We start with a monumental crash before lap 1 was completed. Tyler Murray checking up in front of the entire field on the outside lane. Austin Reedy, the teammate involved, but the biggest one for certainly was Curtis Kelly in the 71 and looking on board with Tyler Murray, who slowed down and got everybody checked up. Then Curtis Kelly going for a wild ride, ending up on his side, landing on the apron. Not the first time we'll see carnage nor a car up and over. We'll tell you about that in just a couple of moments. Here's Lance Hill getting tapped by Trevor Haley, going sideways, bringing out the yellow. And here's Kyle Benson. We saw a lot of storylines between different lines being at use. Kyle Benson was that Pied Piper at the very top of the racetrack, getting around Eric Schaefer there before a caution came out. And around lap 81, this is where Ryan Pandiccio, Skybox Racing Toyota Supra, goes for a harmless spin, comes back up the track. Yellow was called from there. This is the battle for the race lead at the moment. It was Eric Schaefer who was behind this entire group. Lawson Peel and them trying to catch up to Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Kyle Benson going door to door before Lawson Peel made the bid of his own to the race lead on Ethan Fonseca Moreno. As we were going through the field, he took the lead outright, and that's where the chase would stand on from there midway through the race. Then all of a sudden, then calamity struck for the three of Eric Schaefer, caught speeding for the third straight race at Rockingham. It cost him a ton of positions midway through the contest, and then a huge crash. Austin Reedy and AJ Green getting involved in this one, entering turn 1. Here's the fight out of pit road shortly thereafter. Lawson Peel winning it over Ethan Fonseca Moreno, and then it would get contentious inside 10 laps to go. Moreno with his huge shot at going to the inside for the lead. It's a little too antsy. Back up the racetrack into Peel, goes sideways, doesn't bring out the yellow, and it wasn't over from there. Kyle Benson then made the charge on the inside. This was 3 to go, coming to 2 laps remaining at Rockingham. It was an absolute stellar run to the finish. Peel would hold on barely by the skin of his teeth, and then on the final lap, pulled away from that 38 Cheez-It machine in 3 and 4. Lawson Peel will come away with his 5th win of the season and makes it his 28th career 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series victory. There's him celebrating in Paul's setup shot victory lane. Lawson Peel, of course, a driver known for closing it out on very short tracks and, of course, in very contentious races. And for the driver of the 12 and the Mississippi native, once again, 5th win of the season and 28th career of all time as he goes into Richmond, and it concludes now what's a 6-race streak of top 5 so far this season Lawson Peel has been turning it on at the right time and thus far leads the point standings as it goes through. We'll tell you about how the point standings fare after the first 2 races from Chicagoland and Richmond heading into tonight. And of course, with Lawson Peel's top 3 finish at Chicagoland plus the win at Rockingham, it puts him sky high above the competition, 22 points above the next driver, his teammate Eric Schaefer. Then it's a 2-way tie for 3rd place in the standings. Kyle Benson, Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Moreno, of course, with the hit that he took after charging for the lead late in that Rockingham race. And while Benson came home to finish 2nd, both of them end up tied. And then 1 point behind them, you'll find Jaden Porter, defending series champion. And then it continues to remain close from the spots behind them. Lautenslager, Banks, Thompson, all within about 5 points. And then it starts to really go down into the depths when you look at drivers like Ryan Pandiscio, Adam Alashire, and even further then down to AJ Green, who's had a struggle over the last 2 races to get himself going, and he desperately needs a big race here tonight. Let's bring in our second driver / co-commentator of the evening, Francisco Bacallao. And Francisco, you know a thing or two about running in these playoff scenarios where consistency matters most. For drivers like AJ Green, big time trouble. For drivers like Lawson Peel, big time success. What's at stake most as the drivers take the shortest track of the playoffs in Richmond tonight?
Tonight's going to be an interesting decider in terms of where we stand after the points are dealt and handed out to these drivers and their results here tonight. And Lawson Peel has been victorious here at the Richmond Raceway before, and we've seen a multitude of different winners here. In fact, never a repeat winner, but I think the eyes for everybody in the top 5 in points, I think it's very clear with how tight it is for second. You're racing Lawson Peel. You have to catch and pass Lawson Peel and finish in front of him, gain those points, because he already has a pretty safe margin. If he has any kind of issues, he should still walk away with the points lead, or at least enough of a cushion to where he won't be on the back foot going into Daytona next week. But certainly, without a doubt, Eric Schaefer, Kyle Benson, Ethan Fonseca, and Jaden Porter, though they're separated by 3 points, and that's extremely close, their eye is on that 12th car, because ultimately, yes, they have to battle each other, but if they battle each other, they're going to end up second. You have to look forward and look at that 12th car, and funnily enough, there he is, winner of the pole tonight.
And Eric Schaefer, although he's 22 points back, it seems like a lot, but Lawson Peel told us at the end of Rockingham last week that I foresee Eric Schaefer leading a lot of laps tonight from Richmond Raceway. It's a short track that Schaefer holds dear to his heart in the sim, and it's one that he'll have to challenge for with his teammate if he wants to get to victory lane. Drivers have hit the track. Let's take you through the starting grid of the 3rd playoff race for Season 6 of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. Live from Richmond, it's Lawson Peel, the Mississippi driver, looking to go 2 in a row in playoff time. He lines it up with a 22.031 to put his Chevrolet on the pole alongside his teammate Eric Schaefer in the number 3 on the outside of the front row. AJ Green, the Season 4 winner at this track, is looking to finally recoup from the struggles in both Chicagoland and Rockingham. He starts in 3rd. Craig Lautenslager in the number 13, won at Darlington earlier this season. He's going to round out row number 2. Behind them, it'll be Jaden Porter in the number 28 machine. Ethan Fonseca Moreno was going to look to rebound from the charge attempt failed at Rockingham for the race win. He's going to be in P6. Lance Hill will roll off from the 7th place position. Kyle Benson, who ran 2nd place at Rockingham just 1 week ago, he's going to be in 8th. And rounding out your top 10 is Jesse Prees in the 00, returning to the series, and Colin Forrester in the 99 for 10th.
Adam Alashire is going to be in that 11th position with Trevor Haley. These guys looking to make some good runs here tonight. Curtis Kelly will be rolling off 13th. Christopher Bishop alongside in 14th position. Kevin DeLeon for Skybox will be in the number 53 in 15th position with league owner Tyler Murray in 16th. 17th will go to Ryan Pandiscio with Brady Cox alongside him in the 18th spot. Looking back to 19th is rookie Craig Parks alongside him. Brandon Banks looking to make some noise in the points.
Patrick Thompson rolling deep from this field, 21st alongside fellow playoff driver Michael Newbra from 22nd. That's row number 11. And Cody Kinsey looks like he did not make the starting grid, but is credited with 23rd inside of row number 12. So, Francisco, you pointed it out before we went live. This is really the first time we've taken on Richmond under the daylight. Your biggest challenges for the field before we get the green flag tonight?
The track is going to be a lot slicker than what these guys have probably expected. going into the season, or just in general when they've raced here at Richmond, traditionally a night racetrack. Most leagues do run it at night, and there you see right there the temperature 81 degrees in the air, 99 on the track temperature, and a pretty decent amount of wind. Even though they're running lower speeds here, Kenneth, that wind is going to play a role. Couple that with the track temperature and of course the oval racing refresh, we could see guys going just about everywhere on this racetrack as the evening progresses and that sun begins to settle down.
We've had 5 seasons where we've run Richmond, 5 different winners, and it's the driver of Lawson Peel who's taken 1 win before in season 3, looking to do it all over again in playoff style. Green flag from Richmond as they chase for turn 1.
And cars hitting the wall off of turn 2 deep in the field. Looked to have been a blue race car, but right there, Eric Schaefer uses the outside lane to get past his teammate Lawson Peel, gets loose off of turn 4, and Schaefer, with the short track presence that he's had this season, gets back to the front, and he's looking to try and see if he can close the gap on his team. And you see the line he's running, and Peel loose off a couple corners as well. He's got AJ Green hot on his hands. We've documented AJ Green's struggles so far in these playoffs. Right now running in the top 3, trying to take second away.
Went to the inside of Craig Lautenslager to complete the pass, and he's clear. Moreno now challenging against Lautenslager on the inside, so this is going to be for 4th place. Moreno already on the charge early, bringing his teammate in KBueno Racing, that fellow KBRN Chevrolet of Jaden Porter, out of the inside of Kyle Benson. We're looking at 2x2, about 3 rows deep coming out of turns 3 and 4. All the way in the back, they settled it out. That was Lance Hill and Colin Forster going at it for position. And now AJ Green dive on the inside for turn 1 on the 12.
And it won't be an easy pass to pass somebody on the inside here tonight, Kenneth. The outside, you get a lot of momentum, and you could really pinch the guy on the inside down. So if you do it just right, you can really hold on to that position or force them to use their tires up. But AJ Green here at the end of lap 4 is able to move up to 2nd, and Ethan Fonseca is going to get right up to the back of that 12 and see if he can maybe get a move on for 3rd here soon.
They all look at a turn 2. Colin Forster striking the wall, and Lance Hill going in hard into the inside wall hard. That was a hit from Colin Forster. First caution is out at lap 5.
The shades of Chicagoland. Lance Hill with a wrecked race car before the first 5 laps are complete here. And another race for him. That's the 3rd race in a row with troubles for the 1 car. It looked like a couple cars were hitting that wall off of turn 2. And this lap in particular, a couple cars were hitting it a lot harder than they had in the previous laps. And I think the 1 car might have followed the 99 into the wall. Not exactly sure. We'll see if we can get an onboard look from the 1 car. So he's racing Forster side by side, and I think what's going to happen here is Forster gets into the wall, and I think the 1 car just happens to be innocent here and has nowhere to go. So there's the 99. Yes, you see it right there. Just gets into the right rear of the 1, and it spins him back down the racetrack to the inside. You see the smoke coming out of the hood. No good. That's the engine done on the 1 car.
There's a look on board from Hill inside on Colin Forster. So this is really where Forster is going to slap the outside wall, come back down the track. And as Hill gets tapped, he's loose. He corrects the race car, but it just snaps back to the left. And it goes hard into the wall. For Hill, he did not want to see his race end this early, but looks like he's going to take it down pit road and get as much damage as possible fixed. But he's going to be stranded down there, and it's going to be our first caution here, lap number 7 of 167 from Henrico County, Virginia. And for Hill, he had been involved in about 2 incidents at Rockingham last Wednesday, and we recalled it on the highlights video where he got hit by Trevor Haley, went for a spin, and also was semi-involved in that lap 1 scuffle before the first corner. For Lance Hill, this race is going to be called almost immediately early. He's fallen 3 laps down and remains on pit road as a couple of other drivers have hit as well. It's going to be Patrick Thompson in the 88 who came down and started 21st in this field, just elected for a quick 5.4 second stop, and he's going to be all the way back in 21st. So it looks like, Francisco, big time trouble for Lance Hill, but it was something that we saw in the opening lap, and you mentioned it, drivers hitting the outside wall can get very easy to get on the throttle too quickly to the point where the right front wears out so much that the car just travels up the hill and goes hard into that backstretch outside wall. It can be very easy to do and made even worse by the fact that this track temperature is as hot as it is under the daylight. So you've got a pretty slick track that isn't going to grip up on the tires, and the tires just getting out of control and going right into the wall. And some drivers already with that type of damage early.
Yeah, Lance Hill has not had the playoffs he's wanted. Obviously isn't a part of it in the championship context, but Lance Hill trying to see if he can win a race to close out what's been a struggle of a season for himself and not going his way. He's looking to try and win a race before the season's over, but that's the trouble you face here at Richmond. I mean, you're going to have mixing handling conditions, your unknowns, and that wind. We talked about that wind just before the green flag. That could play a role. It's going across the racetrack, and that's probably why guys are both loose and tight coming off the corner. You get a wind gust all of a sudden, and that could maybe get the car looser or tighter in certain situations, depending on how much wheel and throttle inputs you have. So it's going to be an ever-changing fight throughout the entire evening. It's just a matter of can you do it right and most consistently as the evening goes on. You see the lights out on the pace car. We're coming to 1 to green, and interestingly enough, but not surprisingly, Eric Schaefer will take the outside lane. It's the lane that gave him the lead on the last restart, but he doesn't go in front of his teammate to allow him to move up to second place. We obviously documented how Lawson Field is the points leader, and Eric Schaefer going into this race was second in points. This is the kind of moves you have to make to try and get yourself further up the standings, because if you do help that 12 car, you're not cutting yourself any favors.
That's where you start thinking less like a team player and more about yourself. Eric Schaefer wants to pull away as far as possible at the jump of this restart. Lap number 11 at 167 after a first early yellow. Schaefer is away early from AJ Green. We're back under green from Richmond, and Lautenschlager moves to the outside of AJ Green in that fight for second place. Lawson Field trapped on the inside lane as Kyle Minton makes the charge up top. All Eric Schaefer for the moment. Peel still finding his way through the top 5 as Lautenschlager lunges it in on green for second. Schaefer holds on and will lead lap 11.
Benson gets to the outside of the 12 car, and he's going to get around him for the 4th spot. So Lawson Peel, at least right now, is falling back through the field. Not exactly a concern for him. We've seen him on the long runs in every single racetrack we go to end up showing some speed. So I think right now, lap 12 for number 12 isn't a concern with Ethan Fonseca closing in.
And Peel had found himself falling back through the top 3, even in the first run. Before the yellow came out with Lance Hill, he dropped back on AJ Green. Maybe a sign that Peel isn't willing to waste his car all that early in the race. While everyone else is pushing around him, he's just going to let them have their course for the first stint until he can snatch up the heel come the late end of the run. Moreno now charges this time from the outside lane, so we're door to door between the two Chevrolets. Entering turn 1, Moreno will have the advantage entering the corner. And this is where that middle lane could come into play, Francisco. You mentioned the oval refresh on the iRacing service that was implemented several months ago. And with track temps as hot as this, under the daytime conditions, you will have probably the best conditions possible to open up the lane. You often see that inside lane get so slick over a long run, especially here at Richmond where it is commonly most used. Then it possibly opens up the door for the experimentation in the middle lane and then the outside, and Moreno used that to perfection to get around Peel for 5th.
And it kind of diamond the corner here and get away with it, and it's not that big of a deal. You just enter about half a lane, maybe a full lane upwards, get the car woed down, and then turn down the racetrack, and you can actually make really good straightaway speed doing that because the corners here aren't that particularly long. So it's certainly a viable option, and we'll see if guys try that as the run goes on. But I do expect to see guys eventually move around. That second lane at night, it does work when you're battling somebody. You can really pinch off that exit, especially off of turn 2. But I think during the day where you have to consider handling to be more of a factor, I think you could really make that work even more effectively.
Moreno coming off of a 7th place finish at Rockingham last Wednesday, which was definitely not reflective of the speed that he carried throughout the race. Certainly a top 2 car, if not in contention directly for the win. Went on the inside of Lawson Peel, coming to 10 laps to go. Got into him, moving up the hill, went sideways, and fell through the midst of the top 10 before recovering to finish 7th. This is a driver, Francisco, that is yearning for another race win. It has been since Bristol, early in the regular season, that Moreno has seen the checkered flag first. And that's when he beat Lawson Peel in a outlasting fight to the win. It was a lot of fun to watch then. It's been a lot of fun to watch Moreno since then. And as consistent as he's been, nothing has come close to replacing the feeling of that victory that he picked up at Bristol months ago throughout Season 6. Moreno also comes off of an 8th place finish at Chicagoland, so 2 top 10 runs, putting him in the top 4 from point standing, 24 points back of Lawson Peel, who holds on to the top spot. Here's a look at the race lead. It is a half a second difference between Schaefer and AJ Green. This is exactly the foresight that Lawson Peel had last week, Francisco, that's coming to life. Eric Schaefer getting up front immediately and leading a bulk of the laps. I know we're only 20 laps in, but this is Schaefer's bread and butter. Leading in short tracks like these in clean air with no one to worry about.
I bet he wishes there was more of them in these playoffs to really capitalize on them. But, I mean, Eric Schaefer all season long has been pretty decent at these short tracks, gotten a couple wins in the process. But he's no slacker on the big racetracks either. You remember, he outlasted in a battle with Ethan Fonseca as well at the Michigan Speedway in a dead heat to the race line, and he was able to get the win there. He's been very fast at other racetracks as well, so he needs a run like this to maybe give him that a shot in the arm and get him closer to Lawson Peel in terms of the points itself, to really feel like he has a shot going into Daytona, because that's really what it comes down to, Kenneth. After today, these guys going to Daytona, we have no idea what to expect at the end of that one.
We don't. And for Schaefer, too, his first win of the season came at the track you mentioned, Michigan International Speedway. Probably the least likely track we expected Schaefer to get his first win at, because we don't necessarily categorize him as a 2-mile master, but we do know him as a short track prowess. And IRP definitely showed that midway through the season, where he dominated that race from basically first flag to last flag. Schaefer holding on to the lead here across the line for lap 24 of 167. While we stay on Schaefer and AJ Green, who are running first and second, with Lautenschlager tangling behind in third place, we have to, Francisco, talk about the elephant in the room between these two, and that's been the different types of struggles they have both encountered over the course of these playoffs. And we'll start with Schaefer for Drinking Bros Racing. His crutch, speeding. We look at Chicagoland Speedway, the first race of the playoffs, where Eric Schaefer unfortunately got into a speeding penalty, and it cost him a big shot at the race. Caution flag is going to be out. We'll see exactly what that is about in just a couple of moments. And I believe it might have been Adam Alashire, him or Kevin D'Elia, who were involved. Two of the Skybox Toyota Supras slow on the racetrack back in 20th and 21st.
We'll see exactly what brought out the caution here, and it seems like involved the 42. And yeah, right there, looks like Bishop just gets into the back of the 53, might have checked up on corner exit there and just didn't react fast enough, and around goes D'Elia. A harmless spin, really. Might have some left rear damage, but nothing too considerable, nothing too bad there for D'Elia. He should be able to keep going, so we're on board here just to get his perspective on it. And it should be exactly that. Probably just was tight off the corner, lifted off the gas to keep from getting into the wall, and the 42 gets in the back of him. Yeah, you hear the lift right there, yeah.
Just hops right off the gas pedal. Bishop not expecting that, so makes the slight contact, and for that, the 53 of D'Elia goes for a quick spin. Meanwhile, everyone is on pit road. All the leaders and basically everyone on the racetrack coming in for either their first set of tires or a splash of fuel. It appears, and not many drivers electing to put the jacks up. It looks like Eric Schaefer is just staying with fuel only for the matter. Now he's going to lift up the jacks on the left side of the race car. Looks like one driver is out first. That is Brady Cox on a 6.1 second stop. Schaefer is going to be out first of the 4 tire takers, but Brady Cox with a strategic move out of nowhere to take the race lead.
Interesting call, to say the least. I'm not exactly sure we expected that one in the Chase Elliott Napa Night Vision scheme, but certainly a call to get him out front, lead a couple laps, and do exactly this, get him some airtime. So shout out to Brady Cox on the strategy. We'll see how this works out on the restart with the old tires. That's never a fun time when you're on the old tires on the restart, because you have to get going firstly, and then once you do get to that corner, everyone's have so much more grip than you do, and it's definitely a topic of conversation as far as tire wear when you consider the real-life Bristol Motor Speedway race this past weekend.
Yeah, you're right. And for Brady Cox, too, he's got nothing to lose. I mean, he's not a playoff driver. He joined midway through the season, has run pretty well over certain races, and we've highlighted him a couple of times. Also a driver in the Work Dynamo Designs National Series, back when we used to cover that several months ago, and even I think over a year ago as well. It's been quite a while since we've had work on the KBueno Racing Network, but Cox was one of those drivers involved, if you remember, in that lap 1, turn 1 incident at Rockingham, and it took him out of contention so early on in the night, put him so many laps down. For Brady Cox, the question really is, why not? If you're going to take this lead away and maybe lead some laps, have some fun with those drivers at the front of the field, even if you're not the prime contender. Now, before we got the yellow flag, we were going to discuss one of the problems that has affected Eric Schaefer so much over the course of the playoffs. And that, of course, Francisco has been speeding. A look at Chicagoland Speedway, where it was really a problem for Schaefer to get going. It looks like the video certainly isn't playing right now, but as we're going through, Schaefer had a speeding penalty midway through the Chicagoland race, and it was an early enough mistake for him to fully rebound and get a top 10 finishing position, but then it happened all over again at Rockingham Speedway last Wednesday, and this time it was further down the order in the race, and while Schaefer was somewhat able to rebound, it wasn't the way that he wanted it to. So for Schaefer, tonight could be a huge saving grace in his playoff pursuit, just because he could avoid pit road speeding penalties. Not to say that he can't, but it's something that he can certainly overcome at a track that he certainly enjoys, and having the performance that he's had over the first stint tonight.
Yeah, his goal tonight is going to be don't speed on pit road and get rid of this track position. He has some of the best track position here tonight. If you lose it, it's going to be hard to gain it back, and that's the story of these playoffs. You can't give up track position. You can't make these mistakes and expect to be able to recover better than what you were doing before. So for Eric Schaefer, don't speed on pit road tonight. Just run a clean race, and you should be there. And in the end, you have a good enough race car. You just got to make sure you stay there. And it looks like he doesn't get too good of a launch compared to Craig Lautenslugger, at least. But Brady Cox gets away well. He's going to lead them to turn 1. He's going to go to the inside. He's going to kind of block it off for the 3 car in turns 1 and 2. You see the field kind of stack up just behind, but I think Schaefer's going to get to the inside now and should get by him.
On the fresh tires, Schaefer lunges to the bottom in 3 and 4, and will have the nose ahead. Come out of the final corner. Cox almost grazes the outside wall. Schaefer back to the race lead here at Richmond Raceway, and this is going to hurt Lautenslugger because he certainly enjoyed that Cox chose the outside lane, so Lautenslugger gets a better run, and they're all stacking up behind Cox, the slower car, on the outside of both of them hit the outside wall on the way out of turn 2. Green moves to the second. A bit of physicality off of turn 4. We're 3 wide.
And Ethan Fonseca wants none of that. You see him moving already to the inside, trying not to be a part of any kind of caution or any kind of incidents there and get any damage on his race car. He's able to get by the 78, but he does make contact with the 13, and Jaden Porter shows up to the scene.
Lautenslugger woed up out of turn 2, and the 21 of Moreno got right into him, gave him the shot. Jaden Porter right behind them, the tertiary car in this group. Moreno's going to find his way to the inside in turn 1, and this is going to be for 5th place on the track. And it is a struggle to get around this old tire Brady Cox machine. He remains on the top to stay out of harm's way, but it's a 2-lane racetrack, so Cox is going to try to hold on to whatever he can muster. And the in-turn problem, Francisco, is that he's holding up everyone behind him, and it certainly was a detriment for those drivers in the top 5. And now for Jesse Priest, who has to stay behind Cox and hope that there's some free space so he can move around this fellow Chevrolet.
I think the evidence is on the back bumper of that 13. Now you saw it all scratched up there when we were on the far outside camera. And Ethan Fonseca got into the back of it a couple times because of the 78. And there you see it right there. Look how damaged that 13 is. That's not going to affect performance, but it certainly doesn't look pretty. But then again, we're at a short track. When is it supposed to look pretty?
Well, also, too, you can take a hit at these short tracks and be completely fine. Yeah. I think I've seen drivers beat up to the point where at most other tracks they would be undrivable and unraceable, and they are drivable and raceable at short tracks, especially at this distance like Richmond is at only 3/4 of a mile. Lautenslugger dives deep in 1 and 2, looking for some sort of run on Pio to build up for 4th place. Lautenslugger comes into this race 6th place in the standings, about 31 points back of the driver ahead of him in Lawson Peel. So Lautenslugger, who found his way to the playoffs from the Darlington win, certainly looking to stay there and get back to another championship contending round. As caution comes out once more, it appears slow is Christopher Bishop, slow is Kevin D'Elia. Did these two tangle a second time? No, it looks like Kevin D'Elia all by himself, and back to the problem, full circle. It's the old tire car of Brady Cox, who was right ahead of this group.
Looks like he lost it under braking, probably saw the rapid pace he was catching up to that car, and applied a little bit extra brake in it, and the car goes around from the rear. So let's see if we can ride on board with him here. Going down the backstretch, he kind of lifts. I think he's trying to go to the inside, was indecisive, but he does exactly that. He last minute just decides to avoid him because he was gonna get into the back of him, and around he goes from the excessive rear braking in the car, and that does it for him. It brings out another harmless yellow, but it does give the 78 a chance to bring it onto pit road. Won't have as much fresh tires compared to what the field had when he stayed out, but certainly some fresher tires, which could help him in his own race, which is really what it's all about, Kenneth. I think maybe it wasn't so much as trying to make a play for the front of the field. I think if you're Brady Cox, you're probably thinking, okay, if I follow these guys, I'm going to run in this position. Maybe if I make this alternative strategy and get a caution at a timely manner, they'll stay out. I get fresher tires, and I might end up running higher than where I was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's true. And for Brady Cox as well. I mean, he has nothing to lose, right? He's not a driver running for the playoffs. He's not running for the championship. Why not? Make these little alternative decisions. And he sort of got saved by the bell, or in this case, saved by the caution, because he didn't use a set on the last yellow that everyone came down pit road with. So he's on the same set as everyone else now, albeit just taking it a little bit later than those drivers at the front. So Cox with that alternative strategy, you never know. It could work, because remember one of the last times we were here, Francisco, back in Season 3? A strategy call, kind of like that one, in a way. It was a strategy call we did not predict. Got a driver to victory lane for the very first time. You want to know who that was?
Lawson Peel.
Yep, Lawson Peel. Back in Season 3 when we knew him as just a rookie, driving a Wood Brothers Chevrolet Camaro on 2 tires on a green-white checkered restart. Got his very first win here at Richmond, and lo and behold, 27 wins later, Lawson Peel here running 4th. 41 laps in, while his teammate Eric Schaefer has been commanding the field. While we couldn't really dial in on the video that showed you the struggles that Eric Schaefer has gone throughout the playoffs, let's touch on another driver who's running well tonight that also has faced not the greatest luck here in playoff style, and it starts with the 48 of AJ Green. This is at Chicagoland, and we really didn't have footage of him DQing or disconnecting from this race, but here's him running in the top 5, then disconnected, finished beneath the top 20, and then at Rockingham, him getting into Austin, really a hellacious crash, sending the 34 up and over on his roof, and AJ Green directly involved, and it gave him big time damage, enough, Francisco, to take him out of this race. Green is in the worst position coming out of the first 2 races of the playoffs. He is a total of 62 points out from your leader in Lawson Peel. So there is a too far position. AJ Green, Francisco, is creeping eerily close to that very limbo state. What does he have to do tonight, statement-wise, to keep himself alive for the championship?
I don't want to sell it short, but I also am very blunt, Kenneth. He has to win this race here tonight. He is well over a race full of points behind Lawson Peel, and we fully expect Lawson Peel to finish in the top 5. So AJ Green has to go out there, win this race, win a couple of races, and hope that he can somehow get back into that battle, because I think that's just the way the points will work out for himself and for his team. He's got to do it, and he's going to have to be aggressive all night long. Eric Schaefer gets a great launch, and this time he helps his teammate to get up in the 2nd place, or at least give him a fighting chance going into 1.
Schaefer clears ahead for the lead. Lawson Peel going way hard into 1 and 2 to look to clear that 48 car on the inside of Green. It's not going to be successful until they enter 3 and 4. Peel, he'll remain in this fight for 2nd. Meanwhile, they fight for 4th behind them. Moreno on the outside of Kyle Benson, the Cheez-It machine on the very bottom. Peel clears for P2 to turn 1.
And the 21's trying to get to the outside of AJ Green to move up into 3rd, and I think he's to the outside, just barely. Not really. It seems like AJ Green was able to clear him mid-corner. But AJ Green's not letting Lawson Peel get away. You see him getting very close to the bumper. Peel kind of moves up on corner exit, and the 38 stays battling with the 21 as Green gets back to the inside.
Green on the inside once more for Peel, who let Green by early on in the first game before we had our first caution. But Green is going to fight back on the inside with help from Kyle Benson. In the 38, Craig Lautenslager has sort of fluttered back to P6, but he's still contentious in this fight that's sort of two-way now for what's going to be the top 5 position. Moreno remains hard braking on the middle lane. It seems to work for him quite well. The rookie stripe number 21 making his move up top on Benson. Green gets a little wiggle out of turn 2. And one thing that is notable about Richmond Raceway that you always have to keep in mind, Francisco, is that turn 2 exit, that transition to the back straightaway. As a driver, what's the biggest challenge of that? It's a little hump that flattens out from the exit of 2 to the backstretch. What do you always have to keep in mind as a driver, and what challenges do you face when you rise out of this hill and then flatten out?
That corner really goes away from you. When you're driving in the race car, if you compare it to turn 4 kind of just shows up, but you can kind of feel it coming from a long way. But no, when you get to turn 2, that wall pops out right at your face, and you have to make sure you stay off of the wall. It's very easy to get in there. We've seen many drivers get into the wall as a result of it. Look how quickly it just shows up there. It straightens out a lot earlier than the exit of the corner is. That's the result of it, from having wider corners and narrower straightaways. And you see right there in turn 4, it isn't really present, but in turn 2 it most certainly is, and that's what happens. So you get the banking going away a lot earlier, plus the wall straightening out a lot sooner than the corners actually finished. And that's exactly how you get to that situation, and that was actually a really good angle that showed it.
Prime recipe for either spinning the rear tires or going right up into the wall. We've seen a bit of both so far over the first 49 laps. And you look about a lap and a half ago where Lautenschlager made a bit of contact with Kyle Benson entering 3 and 4. Those are the 2 Murby Motorsports drivers in these playoffs. Benson, after Rockingham, is 3rd in the standings, 24 points out. We mentioned Lautenschlager back in 6th, but they also have their teammate Tyler Murray, who's sat back in 12th of the standings. A total of 3 of those Murby Motorsports Fords looking to make a run at a championship this year. We'll keep an eye on those 2 Ford Mustangs as they certainly make their way through 1 and 2 once more. It's a driver that found some struggles at the first 2 races of the playoffs, but is slowly picking things back up. This is Trevor Haley, the driver of the number 4, the CSX Ford Mustang, running 8th right now, and at Chicagoland got into the incident on the back straightaway that sent him spinning, and then got into a bit of contact with Lance Hill and just sort of hung around the mid-pack at Rockingham for most of the evening, where he finished in 13th. And for Haley, one of the several rookies that's making a statement into the 4-wide playoffs this season. Certainly some nerves when you think about the drivers you're always up against, likes of Lawson Peel, Eric Schaefer, Kyle Benson, guys who have been around for so many seasons. Jaden Porter, even which, a young driver, but one of those who captured his first ever championship last season. So Trevor Haley has certainly a lot on his mind as a rookie driver. Tonight, much like AJ Green and a couple of others, could be the possible turnaround as Haley runs in the top 10 so far.
And you can look within his own class when you consider Ethan Fonseca. He's definitely been the standout rookie as far as getting those wins and being up front with your primary championship contenders. I think he's kind of set that standard. And Trevor Haley, whilst he's been very solid in his own right, has kind of been playing second fiddle as far as the rookies to Ethan Fonseca. So Trevor Haley's trying to see if he can get out of that shadow and make a headline for himself.
Here's another rookie weaving through the field. Patrick Thompson, who started this race deep inside the top 20. Was outside of the top 20 when he came down pit road after the first yellow. Looks like his strategy call is paying out quite a bit, running in 17th, right in front of fellow rookie Craig Clarkson, behind fellow playoff driver Michael Newraw in that black and neon green Chevrolet Camaro for Drinkman Bros Racing. So a long line of cars from about 16th on back. They have a decent gap before they get to Brady Cox, who, with his call to get on fresh tires off the recent yellow, was up to 15th place. There's a lot of comers and goers throughout this field, Francisco, and surprisingly, a lot of the separation. You'd imagine that at a shorter track, we'd find a lot more closeness between the field, but you really have this first pack, and then you have the second pack, and then you have maybe 16th on back, call it the third or fourth group of cars, starting to spread out a little bit on our longest green flag run of this race at 30.
It's not really surprising, Kenneth, because at short tracks, with all the braking you have to do, the tire management that really plays a role at shorter tracks compared to intermediates, you'd expect the separation in a sense. So it doesn't surprise me, especially with these top 2 currently pulling away. And you look on the back of the screen, you see Ethan Fonseca's actually gotten past Lawson Peel for that 3rd position, so move to 21 up to P3. And Kyle Benson's going to try and see if he can get past that 12 car here soon enough, as Jaden Porter's moved up to 6th, or excuse me, up to 7th.
Moreno onwards to challenge Green and Schaefer, who have pulled away by about 0.7 of a second to 3rd place. Green and Schaefer still nose to tail. You can imagine that Green is still very much in contention for the race lead. If Schaefer gets a bobble here and there, Green has a chance to close in further. and thus a chance to take away the race lead. Now, Green, of course, is the Season 4 winner here at Richmond, where the race went into green-white checkered territory. Green outlasted the competition through basically all of the attempts, and at the wave of the final yellow flag and the checkered, Green was hailed victorious. And Green certainly knows a thing or two about running well in a track this short at Richmond. And while Schaefer in his 4-wide career has never won here, he's won it very much short tracks across the schedule. He won at IRP this season, so call it 2 short track veterans in this series already. Green holding on strong, not letting Schaefer pull away all too much, making a fun race for the lead.
And it's been a while since AJ Green has gone into victory lane, hasn't done so this season. I believe it was around the halfway point of last season that he was able to last go to victory lane, if you can find out which race that is. But he's still trying to go back to victory lane. He's in these playoffs, and he has to get into victory lane if he wants a chance at fighting for that championship and trying to become a 2-time champion in this series.
He was a 2-time winner back in Season 5. His most recent was the second to last race of the regular season, and that was the stunning ending for Kyle Benson, where Green on the final green-white checkered attempt gave him the bump and run in 3 and 4, went to the inside and was declared ahead by the time that final caution came out when they were wrecking on the back straightaway. So yeah, it's been quite a while, Francisco, since Green has visited victory lane. Green is certainly yearning for that, and while he's been consistent enough to give himself a playoff shot, winning always gives you that extra sense of solace. And for Green, that's basically what he needs, 62 points behind your top standings runner in Lawson Peel. But the top 5 have separated as things have progressed forward, or one of our closest battles inside the top 10 is right here. Jaden Porter, Season 5 champion, right under Craig Lounslugger, who got his Ford Mustang repaired on the last yellow and the trip down to pit road. 2 of these drivers within 2/10 of each other. And then, of course, Kyle Benson, the Murray Motorsports Ford Mustang teammate, right up ahead. Separation from there on back, Francisco. This is really where the run settles in. And as a driver, what are you thinking about most? About surviving what's the longest green flag run we've had at Richmond so far, as Banks moves to the inside of Curtis Kelly for 11.
Tires. You have to take care of those tires. It's still pretty warm out there. The sun is beating. You're trying to make moves. You're trying to make up time, and you have to take care of those tires ultimately, because that's what's going to buy you time in these long runs.
Banks gets ahead of Curtis Kelly. Banks, another one of those Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets who has found so much success over his career in the 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series. And every single final championship round that Brandon Banks has been in the series, he's been a part of that final round, and he's always had a shot at the championship. And while this playoff format doesn't reward making it to a final round of you and 4 other drivers, it's going to be consistency that's going to matter for Banks, as he currently runs in 11th and has a shot at catching up to the 2 Supras ahead of him, Colin Forrester and Brian Pandicio. One of those 2 drivers, playoff runners in Pandicio. Brandon Banks, the driver out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, currently running really well here in the top 11 as he pushes forward. Also running a bit of that higher line, and we're seeing a lot of that for Francisco over the course of this race. I think Moreno was sort of the trendsetter in that aspect. One of those guys to run up in that middle lane through 1 and 2, or even 3 and 4, then sort of arc the car down to the exit of the corner, get the flattest exit possible. You don't see that much out of the mid-pack drivers, but you're seeing that a lot out of the leaders. And then from Brandon Banks on back. It's a unique strategy as it comes with the oval refresh. Guys searching for grip in the higher lanes.
And what I've noticed is the 21 is kind of diamonding, much like that 3 car is doing in the race lead, but also he's running higher in 3 and 4 than he is in 1 and 2. You watch here when he goes to turn 1, he goes a lot lower. He certainly enters below the white dashed lines and is able to get to the yellow line off the exit. But when he goes down here to turn 3, watch where he places his car. It's almost, well, right there he happened to go a lot lower, but the previous lap he was closer to the actual white dashed line. So he's experimenting a little bit whilst trying to see what works best for him, as he has definitely gained time on your top 2. The question is there any place to find any advantage? Because it seems like most of your top 4 are kind of running a similar pace, as Jaden Porter is looking to the inside of Craig Lautenslugger for the 6th position. 28 trying to see if he can move up another spot, won't be able to get by him. He tucks back in line.
It's the sort of peek on the inside, but Launslager is going to peek on the inside of his teammate there entering turn 1, so it's basically a three-way fight for the last spot inside the top 5. For both Porter and Benson, decent finishes. Our last trip out at Richmond under the lights with the next-gen cars in Season 5. Porter started 13th in that race and ended up finishing 4th, while Kyle Benson wrapped up a top 5 finish. And basically most of our top 5 runners now, Francisco, ran well the last time we were here. You look at AJ Green, who's 2nd right now. He finished in 6th place in our last trip to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Look at Eric Schaefer, who leads this fight so far. Finished 2nd behind his KBueno Racing teammate, Joe Sanchez. And of course you have guys like Colin Forrester, who's running back in 10th, who ended up with a top 3 run at the wave of the checkered flag after the 176 lap. So a bulk of the drivers you're seeing running up front, or at least decently so far, turning the page from the last time we were here. And of course, this being under the daylight has certainly been a wild factor for these drivers, but they've handled it well. Just shows you that the cream always rising to the top as Porter remains adamant in getting underneath the 13 and might have coughed up a mistake from Launslager. Porter shoots for the outside in turn 1.
I think he sees that the rear tires are struggling on the 13 and he has to capitalize on it on corner exit, and getting to the outside is a huge step in that because he has the advantage here on corner exit. As long as he can stay to the outside throughout that corner, really pinch off the exit for the 13, it should give him an advantage. Like right there, he did a pretty decent job of that. He gets the run off of the corner, and now he has to try and do a little bit of an arc here in turns 1 and 2 to really get an advantage. Down the back straight with a 13, hits the apron, and that's going to give the 28 the spot.
Porter with the run out of 2 gets the position away from Launslager, puts him in a P6, and onwards to the next Ford Mustang in line, Kyle Benson, who has straight away using the outside line like he did earlier in this race, is now starting to run a little closer to the bottom, specifically in 3 and 4 as he runs the middle in 1 and 2. It seems like everyone is employing that sort of middle to bottom diamond strategy in both sides of the racetrack. We're 77 laps in, our longest green flag run, standing at now 51 and counting, as Eric Schaefer continues to lead by about 2/10 over AJ Green. Then behind them is Ethan Fonseca Moreno, about 2/10 back from Green's machine. Lawson Peel has slowly caught up to this pack of 3, now making it a quartet, so he's back and forth. You see him there about a second or so behind the race leader. Kyle Benson 5th, Jaden Porter in 6th place, Craig Launslager 7th, Trevor Haley 8th, Ryan Pendicio 9th, and Brandon Hicks rounding out the current top 10. It's been a lot of fun to watch, Francisco, but what's been even more fun to watch is this. The top 4 all clustering together. Basically 4 of those Chevrolets.
I bet you like that.
4 of those Chevrolets. One of them Toyota.
I bet you like that, seeing the bow tie up front.
I can't deny nor confirm, but I'm going to confirm.
I'll confirm for everybody who doesn't already know.
But it's been a lot of fun, nonetheless, to watch these 4 slowly creep up together. But is this a proper threat for Eric Schaefer, do you believe, Francisco? Because AJ Green is getting close. Now Moreno's creeping up on the 48. Lawson Peel is picking up on them both. Is this a real sense of concern for Eric Schaefer? I don't really want to make a 21 Pilots reference, but is this a level of concern for Schaefer now, or is this just the fight for second that he's excited to have build right in front of his eyes?
I think as long as nobody can get to his inside or outside, he's not concerned. And AJ Green put up a challenge a little bit on the restart, but ever since then has not really been closer than what he has been right now. So I think if you're Eric Schaefer, you're fine. Keep bringing him.
Top 4 all within a second. And then it's 2.5 seconds from the leader to 5th place Kyle Benson. It just shows you the level of space between Benson and Peel. And of course how far back they are from the race leader. This trio back here tailing to around 7th. Then another decent gap before you find the rookie Ryan Pendicio. The Massachusetts native was running pretty well right now at 82 laps in from top 8. Brandon Banks behind him in 9th. Trevor Haley still in the top 10 as Banks continues to crack on forwards. It's been really cool to see the level of separation between these drivers as this run progresses, but that does mean we could be on the horizon for some green flag pit stops very well soon, and that will pose a threat to Eric Schaefer, because that means he has to make that crucial decision of when he's going to hit pit road. And Richmond is very different from the likes of Chicagoland and Rockingham, Francisco. You're going way faster at both of those other venues. Richmond, you're hopping on the brakes, but you have to turn and brake at the same time to make that apron, and then a pretty shallow entry onto pit road. Pretty decent challenge that we'll see on display if we don't get a yellow soon.
Yeah, it's very hard to go on a pit road braking at your normal braking point for turn 3. You probably have to tap the brake just that little bit earlier to get the turn, because you have to get all the way down. The fortunate part for these guys is they don't have to make that cone halfway along the apron, which most guys in real life do. They just have to make the actual pit wall there on the left side, so it's a little bit easier on that front, but still difficult nonetheless. They got it down there and slow down in pit road speed, and well, believe it or not, and whether he wants it to be the case or not, it's been a problem for the 3-car in these playoffs. So these green flag pit stops very crucial for him. Not just whether he can keep the lead or not, it's whether the fact that he can go mistake free.
Schaefer has to keep an eye on the competition behind you because it's only a 1/10 of a second. That 48 car is creeping up. And Moreno, who is hung back in 3rd, has had a shot at green several times, but this is the closest we've seen all 3 of them all night long. Run out of turn 2, a bobble from Schaefer. Here's AJ Green, a look on the inside for the top spot.
As we've discussed, making that pass on the inside is going to be very difficult. The 21 sliding off of turn 4 is going to lose a little bit of time to your top 2, but if Schaefer's willing to give him AJ Green the bottom, he knows that to be able to hold on to the spot, he just needs that outside lane. It's certainly the better line to run, and you see it brings the 21 into it as soon as the 48 gets pinched off to the bottom.
Green with a bit of a slide on the entry of turn 3. You saw that car just horizontally going sideways, and Green this time kicks out the rear end out of 4. That's a door wide open for Moreno to take away 2nd. Moreno's going to dive into 1 and 2. He's got P2 out of the 2nd corner as Green makes that one mistake. We talked about it. Just one little mistake could have the rest of the field hounding on you. I was talking about Schaefer in this case. Now it goes to AJ Green, who falls back to 3rd.
And he didn't really fight. I think he realized the 21 was mostly already ahead, and just kind of wanted to keep the gap to Schaefer what it was instead of bringing Lawson Peel into it. So he kind of semi-conceded there in 1 and 2 and gives the 21 the spot. Now it's up for Ethan Fonseca to see what he can do against Eric Schaefer before pit stops, or whether he decides to bring it down pit road and use the undercut to get in front of that 3-car. But it's no surprise here, Kenneth, that just past the halfway point in this race, and it's been a while since we mentioned it, the big 3 are in this top 4 as we do have pit stops. Michael Newbraw in.
6-car in first. He comes out the exit of turn 2, and there was not another driver that came down with him, so it was basically Newbraw all by himself. Fight for 15 between 2 playoff runners, Alashire in the 91, the 88 of Patrick Thompson. Keep an eye on those 2 as things progress. They've got Jesse Prees right behind them to make it another 3-car fight for 1 spot. Moreno went to the outside in turn 2. There's Newbraw, who cycles out with the rest of the field. And you're right, this is really going to be the crucial moment on when you properly decide to take your car down pit road. And this is going to be the level of the run where the fall off is at its peak. You're looking at drivers in the 23.7s, but with mistakes, they're falling into the 24-second range for lap time. So it's getting pretty close to dropping off drastically from where we started on the run. And Moreno, with his best run on the race leader all night long, is going to have another crack at it, exiting 4. An onboard look with the California native as he flirts to the bottom and goes to the inside for the lead on lap 93.
He hit the apron. That's not really going to help his chances, and he's going to make contact with the 3-car. I was just about to bring up how much did he learn from last week, and he's still being aggressive, trying to get around the 3-cars. Michael Newbraw, the lapper on fresher tires, bursting his way through this battle momentarily, and he'll get to the 3-car here in turns 1 and 2. But also very important to note, Kenneth, these guys have been on this run for close to 70 laps. That's just about how much is left in this race, so depending how much further they can go on this fuel tank is indicative to us is if they're able to make this on 1 pit stop, assuming it goes green.
Yeah, but how about Schaefer, regardless of the fuel situation, playing that defense? Moreno saw the light entering turn 1. Schaefer shut it off right at the source. Holds on to the race lead. And meanwhile, those top 2 drivers, Schaefer and Moreno, have pulled out from AJ Green and Lawson Peel. That 12 really hasn't made significant progress on the rest of this group. And Green, with that one little mistake that gave Moreno 2nd place. Now Green is starting to fall back considerably, so this is really going to be the calling card for these guys at the front. whether making a decision on pit road now is going to matter most versus staying out a couple laps longer. These drivers have reached 70 laps on their stint on tires and fuel, so sooner than later we should see that anticipated run to pit road. And really what's going to matter, Francisco, too, is that this could be the final stop for these guys. We'll have about 67 laps to go when we reach lap 100 in a couple turns around Richmond Raceway, which means if these drivers have gone 70 plus laps on their stint, it means they can go on one run until the end of the race without a yellow. So this may be the money stop.
You're right, which puts more pressure on Eric Schaefer on performing this pit stop. Again, not for the sake of keeping the 21 behind him, whether he can get in and out of pit road without troubles, which has been the calling card the first 2 races of these playoffs, and now he's going to need a really big pit stop to keep the lead of this race.
Three-way fight for third building up. Make that another car added to this little cluster up at the front of the field. Jaden Porter has come alive here late and has moved into the top 5, and he'll try to spy on what Lawson Peel and AJ Green are doing here at this type of run. And look to get the best of both of them as Peel runs a little higher in 3 and 4, looking for some clean air over the 48 of AJ Green. Back to the first corner. We'll dive on the inside for position. So this is going to be a fight open for third place. Auction out. We'll see who wins this bid.
48 will get the run off the corner. That'll bring the 28 a lot closer to the 12 car. And what AJ Green's hoping is that Porter can be able to battle Lawson Peel. You see Peel moves up a little bit off the corner. He's going to get loose off of 4. And that's going to invite Jaden Porter a little bit, but he doesn't take the bait of going to the inside. Not yet anyways, but he's looking in the inside, making sure Lawson Peel knows he's there.
Porter at this moment bleeding blue, like he's the Kentucky Wildcats wanting to push forward into the NCAA tournament in just a couple of days. Peel switches to the inside while Porter finds all the space open at the top. The Chevrolet of Peel wobbles down low, and Jaden Porter powers on the outside of 4th.
What a move to get to the outside of Lawson Peel, and then Lawson Peel making that bobble, and of course Jaden Porter realizing it and flanking that car perfectly on corner exit to execute the pass and able to get the position. A couple more cars have worked their way onto the pit lane. You see Hallishire out there now on slightly fresher tires. Jesse Freeze most recently came out of the pit lane. There's Tyler Murray. There's certainly more cars hitting pit road now, Kenneth, as we're approaching 60 laps to go here soon. I think the field is going to make its way onto pit road for green flag pit stops in a handful of laps, and that's going to do a large part in determining the outcome of this race.
There's the 36 coming in. And Murray, who hasn't had the best start to the playoffs ever compared to a lot of the other drivers, finished 16th in our last race at Rockingham Speedway and goes into tonight pretty far down the running order, 3rd to last out of the top 14 that are in currently. And there he is at the mercy of being put another lap down by the leaders. Moreno has still remained close to Schaefer.
Watch
this
this
may
run.
be another close run as Moreno switches forward. He goes to the inside on Schaefer. Another challenge for the lead. Will Schaefer cut him off again in 1 and 2? The answer is no. He doesn't have enough, but he's going to stay there on the right quarter panel of Moreno's Chevrolet. We stay door to door, lap 105.
The 21's trying to be more aggressive, use his race car a little bit more at this point in the run, be willing to be aggressive at this point, and you see he gets loose on the bottom in turn 4 because of it, and it might end up costing him. We'll just have to see. They go back to turn 1, he slides off the bottom, and they're going to make contact in the middle of 1 and 2, so Ethan Fonseca extremely aggressive. Schaefer, I think, tapped the wall off of turn 2. We'll see what happens here in turn 3.
While Moreno wants to make it a BBR car running up at the front, Schaefer goes way high in 4, and that may just seal the deal for Moreno to take the lead. Jaden Porter, the other KBueno Racing Chevrolet, is wanting to make a case for 3rd. Here he is on the outside of AJ Green, looking for the crossover out of 2. He's going to have the open space. There's contact behind them. Lawson Peel and Lone Slugger banging doors on the backstretch.
Some damage on the left front for your championship leader, but it looks like it's not too bad. He's got some left rear damage as well. That's another position lost for him for the 12th car. He's lost some spots in this long run, whilst his rivals are up in the front. As you see, Jaden Porter is now behind Eric Schaefer. Eric Schaefer, I think, had a problem because he's lost a lot of ground to your leader, and he's very loose getting into turn 3.
He is all over the place. Schaefer has fully hit this cliff, and he may be put 3 wide as Moreno hops on the brakes. He took the lead, and he comes down pit road almost instantaneously, while the 3 car of Schaefer holds on to what is now the race lead. Talk about the calling card. Well, this might be it as Schaefer falls back through the pack. the entrance of 3 and 4, this is going to be the pivotal call for either of these drivers. Green comes down low, so does Schaefer.
And he's going to
Both
follow
of them
him.
are entering pit road. Jaden Porter will take the race lead, crossing the line to 110. Kyle Benson to join them from 9th. And there he is in the number 38 machine, his Cheez-It car coming down. The gray, blue, and yellow number 4 of Trevor Haley comes down as well. And so this is really the marker where everyone is entering the lane. There's Porter, Lautenslager, Banks, another trio. Hot down for service. Lawson Peel to stay out the extra lap, so at least give himself a lap lead here at Richmond. But boy, things really got sketchy through the top 5. Moreno snags away the lead from Schaefer. He almost gets fully swallowed by everybody third on back. And here's Lawson Peel on the brakes, getting to his marker and into pit road.
He brings it down into the pit lane, and he brings it later than everybody else. So he's going to lose a lot of immediate time, but he's going to have about 55 laps to be able to make that ground back up. But the strategy call for Ethan Fonseca tonight has been amazing. He's driven his way up to the lead, got past the dominant Eric Schaefer from the first half of this race, and now he finds himself in the net race lead, not officially yet, as the cycle has not yet completed. Fran Pandiccio is currently the race leader, but still, he's done a really good job. He's working his way through traffic on different tires levels, so it's a lot more difficult in that sense. But he's shown the pace. He's shown that on the long run he has the pace, and that he has the ability to drive the race car here tonight despite the challenging conditions. All he wants is this race to go green between now and the checkered flag, because he's put on a gap on most of his main rivals.
So far, it is all Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who takes the race lead away from Eric Schaefer and currently holds on to an over 2.5 second gap back to the 3 car, as Patrick Thompson is the only driver left to head down pit road. You're watching coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs live from the Richmond Raceway. We'll take a short break and be back in just a couple of moments on the KBueno Racing Network.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Richmond. Coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series is brought to you by iRacing. Get your sim racing career started today at iRacing.com. By TJ's Team. To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, you can go to wearemorethanacape.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. Back at the Commonwealth of Virginia, this race is all Ethan Fonseca Moreno is at the cross of the line for lap 122 of 167. Welcome back to our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network, where alongside Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Bacallao, Bueno Racing, both of our names. This team has come alive. At the second half of this race, Moreno stole the race lead away from Eric Schaefer right before the crest of green flag pit stops. Jaden Porter has found himself into the top 5, and then after the stops, Moreno leads to the tune of 1.9 seconds and counting over Schaefer, while Porter has stepped into the top 3. Both of these drivers have elevated their presence over the last 50 laps or so, and it is paying off big time with 44 laps to go.
And they needed it. They really did, because they're racing Lawson Peel for this championship. And Lawson Peel's not having a bad night, but he's certainly having a off night for his own standards, which is running in 5th position. But that's just how good he's been over the last couple weeks and maintaining form in these playoffs. He should obviously still keep the points lead, but I think you're looking at, if it stays this way, those two Bacallao Bueno Racing cars moving themselves into 2nd and 3rd in points, and certainly within arm's reach going into a race like Daytona. But of course, there's still a lot that can happen over the next 40 laps in this race, and Ethan Fonseca just managing tires, managing that gap back to Eric Schaefer, hoping that he can get to the white flag.
As we're across the line for lap 126 of 167, here from Henrico County, Virginia. Why don't we go through the field and let's look at where every single driver runs as of almost near the end of tonight's race here from Richmond Raceway. And we'll start, of course, with your race leader, the California driver of Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Had a 7th place finish at Rockingham last Wednesday, but it was not reflective of the speed he carried throughout the night. Was a top 2 car, was in contention to take the race lead away inside 10 to go. When he slid up the track too much into Lawson Peel, went sideways, he saved it, but it was only good enough to get him 7th on the boards. Was disappointed after that run that could have given him his first win since Bristol. Moreno is still chasing that first win since the last Great Coliseum W over Lawson Peel. He is leading 16 laps and counting over the second half of this race. His Chevrolet has come alive, looking for his 3rd win of season 6.
Eric Schaefer has been a short track prowess this season, has dominated most of the evening, leading over 100 laps in this one. Currently running in the 2nd spot. Defeated the allegations of pitting or speeding on pit road so far here tonight. If he's able to bring this in P2, it will be a successful night, even though he definitely wanted that win.
Jaden Porter, who holds 2 top 10 finishes, a 4th place at Chicagoland, a 6th place at Rockingham, is the defending champ that we've certainly been having our eye on. We had a lot of questions at the beginning of this season whether he would be able to master all of the expectations, all of the pressure, but Porter over the second half of the regular season and the start of these 2 races in the playoffs has found his groove with this Xfinity Series car. He's only led 1 lap tonight, but he's always been in contention, whether it be top 5 or now top 3. Keep an eye on the Louisville, Kentucky native who bleeds blue this week, rooting for the Kentucky Wildcats, but is rooting for himself to get his first race win of the season, and it might come tonight at Richmond.
AJ Green is currently running in the 4th spot and has been the kryptonite to Lawson Peel, who has not been able to get by this 48 since they were running 2nd. And AJ Green, last in the playoffs after the first 2 races, is definitely in a situation where he has to hope for the best and win some races. Right now is running in the 4th spot, which would be his best run, but right now he is just barely in front of your current championship leader.
The championship leader has been on a roll since the drop of the green flag at Chicagoland. Remains on this inside fight for 4th on AJ Green, but the winner here from season 3 at Richmond in his first career race, has won 27 races since then, was the winner last Wednesday at Rockingham Speedway, defended his throne there. A real possibility for the Mississippi native to defend his crown here, where his 4-wide racing success started in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The season 4 champion of the series is looking to get right back into the top 3. He was leading some laps as some drivers came down pit road on the green flag cycle, but his race high really has been a top 3 run. Can Peel just execute over the last 34 laps of this race and get his 6th win of the season, plus another one that would keep him ahead of the competition. A lot of confidence for Pio now, but he tries to get back into the top 5 swimmingly.
Craig Lownslager's had a quiet evening inside the top 10 for the most part. He's been aggressive. He's been hitting people, as it looks like AJ Green has an issue in front, but he's been getting hit and he's been hitting people at the same time. Not a fun evening, but he still runs in the 6th spot despite all of that and is looking to try and come away with a potential top 5 spot in the points.
Last week at Rockingham, we saw Moreno's attempt at the race lead be squandered by him going sideways and making contact with Lawson Peel. The driver behind those two was Kyle Benson. Then with 2 laps to go, Benson made a charge on the inside. All for naught though, finished 2nd at Rockingham, North Carolina. And Benson, with one of his most consistent playoff runs we've seen in a long time, the Pennsylvania native, is 24 points behind Lawson Peel in the playoff standings. Running inside the top 10 tonight, hasn't been the outright spotlight driver, but it's certainly someone to watch for and a driver that can make something happen late. Benson running calmly in 7th, then running the high side like he did last week.
The pride of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Brandon Banks is currently running inside the top 10 where he normally does, and he's trying to see if he can put together another solid performance here to keep himself afloat in the odds for the playoffs as he looks forward to Daytona to try and see if he can use his super speedway status to get up there and put on a challenge.
Ryan Pandiccio was one of those drivers involved in that lap 1, turn 1 scuffle at Rockingham last Wednesday, and while he was involved in that accident, he recovered to finish 8th. The Skybox driver out of Massachusetts in his rookie season for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series has been one of those guys to always watch for. Not the standout rookie, but a driver that's always fast week in and week out. Keep an eye on Pandiccio, who is not running the best out of the playoff field as he sits in 9th after the first 2 races. Tonight could be a decent comeback if Pandiccio can lock up a top 10.
Looking back at the 10th spot is Trevor Haley, another rookie. Has not led tonight, but he's been right around the area of the top 10, and he's put on a very quiet evening. Trevor has not had a good start to these playoffs, so if he's able to walk away with the top 10, he'll certainly see it as successful as he's hoping to end up in the top 10 in points after tonight.
That's your full top 10 here from Richmond. We'll highlight the other playoff drivers as it moves forward. Tyler Murray, who's right behind Trevor Haley. The Murray Beatty Motorsports Ford Mustang has not been doing the greatest of the first 2 races of the playoffs, has encountered a lot of bad luck and some accidents that's kept him out of contention. The winner at Talladega to get him into these very playoffs securely is looking to fire up that magic once more that he did at the Super Speedway several weeks ago. But Murray, over the course of March, is looking to turn things around. A decent 11th place run here without much contact could be the grace that he's been looking forward to for the playoffs. And it might be somewhat of a rebound for Murray. We'll see what he can do and if he can gain more track position as he calmly runs on the outskirts of the top 10.
Going back to 14th is another rookie, Patrick Thompson, who led a couple laps there when we were doing the green flag pit stop cycle. Patrick started outside the top 20, is currently running in 14th. Just another quiet evening for rookies here tonight, trying to see if he can bring it home in one piece and see if he can pick up exactly any points wherever he can between now and the checkered flag. Certainly a driver that's looking forward to Daytona, knowing just that anybody can win there.
And then there's our final playoff driver running in 17th, Michael Newbraw, who was one of the first drivers to come down pit road under the green flag cycle. And Newbraw from Lincoln Bros Racing is 2 laps down in 17th. Not the start for the playoffs that he would have anticipated, but Newbraw happy to be in the playoffs regardless, and wants tonight to be a clean one from Richmond. That's your full playoff field. Also to note, 3 drivers have hit the DNF category, one of them being Adam Alashire, the second Jesse Priest, the third Kevin D'Elia. Team Skybox taking a huge hit with 2 of those drivers taken out early in the race. Back up to focus on the front. Ethan Fonseca Moreno out ahead by 2.5 seconds over Eric Schaefer behind him, Jaden Porter, who's locking up the top 3, then Lawson Peel, AJ Green, and Craig Lautenschlager finalizing the rest of your top 6. And then it moves on forward to the rest of the drivers that we discussed several moments ago. It'll be 21 laps to go once we cross the stripe here from Richmond. Francisco, this is the best race that Moreno could have ever asked for. Our longest green flag run since our first several cautions in the first give and take 40 laps in the race. Moreno has come alive. What are you thinking now if you're Moreno? You just have no more pit stops left to really worry about, other than if we have a yellow.
That's exactly what he doesn't want, a yellow. He wants to see the white flag next in about 20 laps or so, and then the checkered flag followed immediately. So right now, at this point, he's not really pushing the race car as much as he would have to, like he was doing earlier in this race. Right now, he's probably running 90, 95%. As you see him actually misses the bottom there. But this is the gap that's going to be interesting between now and the checkered flag. Kenneth, Jaden Porter has really caught up to Eric Schaefer. We saw Eric Schaefer have troubles towards the back end of the previous run. We'll see what Porter can do, and if he can move up into second and make it a KBueno Racing 1-2.
I have to hope that Michael Newbrow, though, gets out of the way. It's the lap car on fresher tires, I'd assume. Porter is looking to get around the fellow Chevrolet ahead just so he can get to Schaefer and make this his best run the playoff so far. And even then, at third place, this for Porter Francisco would still be his best playoff run over Chicagoland and Rockingham, and then including tonight's race at Richmond. This is going to help here. Schaefer behind his teammate Michael Newbrow, who swoops on by. Porter with his best opportunity to take away second place.
And he's been closing ever so slightly, so he's going to have to think about this move. If he can make it similarly to how Fonseca did earlier, or if he's going to try to the outside. It looks like going into one, he peaks to the bottom, but he doesn't actually take it. So he's going to sit back and be a little bit patient. See, he uses the apron there a little bit in turn 2. It actually helped a little bit before he got loose. He's going to go to turn 3 again, peeking to the bottom. He gets into the 3 car. The 3 car gets loose, and he goes up the racetrack. So the bump and run for Jaden Porter gives him second with 17 laps to go.
Porter just rattled Schaefer's cage, entering 3 and 4, moves him out the line and says, excuse me, I'm on the way through, making a BBR 1-2 effort with 17 laps to go. How about Porter getting physical on Schaefer, entering 3 and 4? Let's take another look at that.
Yeah, right here, just... I had lost momentum from the previous corner, but it looks like right here, I'm not sure if the 3 car might have slowed down a little bit more to try and diamond the corner. I think the 28 was trying to see if he can really put the pressure on, and might have just... I don't think it was an intentional move, but let's see if we can figure out what happened, because Schaefer definitely ran a different line when he was pulling away in the backstretch. Looks like Schaefer got loose. Look at the tire marks on the racetrack. He was loose before then.
Yeah, he was sideways several seconds before Porter got to the rear bumper, so it was a mix of those two scenarios going down. Porter getting the big run in 3 and 4, Schaefer going sideways and just aiming to keep that race car alive. Porter nonetheless
Porter's closing that gap.
Way to second place, and he's 1.5 seconds down from his teammate Moreno. You're right, he has closed in the gap. He was about 0.3 faster than your race leader, and this time 0.4 faster than Moreno.
Very interesting these last 14 laps are going to be between the teammates. How does this go down?
And this is a 2-lap difference in favor of Porter on tires. Moreno pitted 45 laps ago, Porter at 43. So that may be the key difference, but it's all about if Porter can hold on to his Goodyear Eagles for the last 13 laps from Richmond. It might be a BBR clash before this is all said and done.
And Michael Newbraw's catching up to your race leader, and that's going to cost him some time soon, because Newbraw does have those fresher tires and is trying to unlap himself. That's going to bring Jaden Porter back into this, and you can see visually the gap is closing. This race is not over.
Another 3.5 tenths that Porter gained on Moreno on the last lap. This time by, it's another 0.2 of a second that Porter has gained on his teammate. Moreno now has to look closer and closer that rear view mirror to see his fellow teammate catching up behind. Playoff drivers occupying so far your top 10 spots. And then it's the first non-playoff car in 11th. That's Brady Cox, who found his tire strategy early in the race to pan out the way he definitely wanted it to, as he's on the outskirts of a top 10 finishing position. Porter inside 0.5 of a second from Moreno.
And if you think about it, the gap to Schaefer for Ethan Fonseca hasn't changed. So this is definitely an impressive effort by Jaden Porter to try and make this a battle for the win as we hit 10 laps to go from Richmond.
This is going to be the second race in a row, Francisco, in which we see a 2-way fight for the win, maybe a 3-way fight if Schaefer can catch up. It is getting madly exciting here from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Newbraw gives way for Porter to slot inside, and nothing in defense for Ethan Fonseca Moreno other than his own race car. Porter out of 4, gets the run. He's within 0.3 of a second the last time by. Moreno at 23.6, Porter at 23.49.
Look how much earlier that 21 was getting on the brakes compared to the 28. Jaden Porter so much faster. What does he do now?
It's all about what line he uses. Remember, Schaefer had punished Moreno using the middle lane and forcing him to use every bit of that yellow line with his left side tires. Does Moreno implement the same strategy on his teammate nonetheless? These two yearning for wins. Moreno, his last win came at Bristol under the lights in a fight with Lawson Pugh inside 10 laps to go. Porter hasn't seen a look of the checkered flag at all in Season 6 of the series. In a 3 and 4, it evens out quite a bit, but the gap remains at about 0.2 of a second.
And this is going to be the hardest part. It's where do you make the pass? Yes, he was closing the gap, but now he's there. He has to do something different to be able to make that move, as you see Lawson Peel once again in a battle with AJ Green after getting past him, and Craig Lautenslager right there as well for the taking. This could determine a couple of key points in the closing laps of this race.
AJ Green, remember, he is still 62 points away from Peel. In this run for the championship, he desperately needs a solid finish, and it could come the way of a top 4 run if he's able to outlast the Season 4 champion, while Lautenslager waits in the wings for something to happen. That time by between your leaders, Francisco, the gap opened. Moreno turned up the intensity. He's now 0.4 ahead with 5 to go.
And let's see what Jaden Porter is able to respond with. Both these drivers keeping a healthy distance back to Eric Schaefer, which if your teammates, obviously at this point in the race, you're being very selfish. You want to win this race, but the last thing you want to do is be the one that ruins it for both drivers. Let's just see what happens here with 4 laps to go. It's a tough position to be in that spot, Kenneth, when you have to race a teammate for the win.
Well, regardless, these two would love either of one of those finishing positions based on what's happened at Chicagoland and Rockingham. But for Moreno, this means way more than just a W in the playoffs. This means a journey that started at Bristol and could end tonight at Richmond, of trying so desperately to get back to victory lane. Moreno crosses the line with 3 to go, and the gap remains at 0.4 of a second to his teammate.
And Eric Schaefer's now dropped to 3 seconds back. Lawson Peel's down to 6th, and he's losing a fair bit amount of time to those 4th and 5th place cars. We'll see if he loses any more spots between now and the checkers.
You can question whether Moreno was running softly over the first part of that stint just to save whatever was left of his Goodyear Eagles. And as Porter has closed up, maybe Moreno just took that as a note to, yeah, I need to start going now, using more of his tires. He's expanded the gap back to 0.6 of a second. Moreno will only have 1 more lap left to change the outcome of this race. Moreno looking to snap a 2-race Richmond streak in which DBR drivers went to victory lane here in Virginia. Moreno catches the white flag from Richmond Raceway. Porter too far back to make a difference at 0.6 of a second. Moreno, who has been the bridesmaid for so long since his win at Bristol, is a bridesmaid no more. Checkered flag, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, winner at Richmond.
And for the first time, a KBueno Racing 1-2 finish, Kenneth. And that's really going to help that team in the Owners' Championship in this cutoff race. But how about it for Ethan Fonseca? Win number 3 on the season. And then there comes Jaden Porter to give him the congratulations. What an effort by both of them, as they put on an excellent show in the second half, as Eric Schaefer's actually going to spin Ethan into the barriers before he gets the chance to celebrate.
Oh no, gave him the tap. Is that suspension damage? I don't believe so, but regardless, Moreno is going to take in the celebrations. It's his 3rd race win of the season, his 3rd career for Wide Racing, TJ's Team Series victory, and his 2nd at a short track. There's Jaden Porter to give him the congratulations. Porter, a playoff high 2nd place after finishing in the top 4 at Chicagoland and then a top 8 at Rockingham last Wednesday. Eric Schaefer, you saw him there spinning the 21. He closes out the top 3. But for Ethan Fonseca Moreno, Francisco, this was a long time coming. After Bristol, we thought Moreno would be that driver to watch for, and he always has been. Always has been so consistent, running up front. But then the countless races where he's come so close to winning, or has had a shot at winning, but has either had a mistake that has tossed away all of his opportunity, or just did not have the speed near the end to call himself another race winner. Moreno finally breaks the curse and goes back to Paul's setup shop, victory lane, this time in the playoffs.
At some point during the regular season, he had a streak of, I believe it was 6 consecutive top 3 finishes with no win in there. So that definitely must have felt bad for him. And you could hear it in those interviews. He definitely was gutted, hoping to be able to win a race again and get back to victory lane and get those bonus points. But now in the playoffs where they matter even more, he's gotten that opportunity as he is parked in the inside of the racetrack there. And it looks like no burnouts for him here tonight. His teammate Jaden celebrating, but all eyes on the driver, the 21. First time he wins a race since that number change, which we thought was a curse for him.
We definitely thought it was. Porter there to give the congratulations to Moreno. It's an overall win for KBueno Racing. They finished 1-2 with both of their Chevrolets, occupying now Paul's setup shop, victory lane. With that, we'll take a look through the full results here from a rather clean race here from Richmond, Virginia. Ethan Fonseca Moreno captures his 3rd win of Season 6. He becomes the 3rd driver with at least 3 wins or more, joining Brandon Hawken and, of course, Lawson Peel, the playoff leader. Jaden Porter turned up the fire in the second half of this race. Talk about how his Chevrolet came to life late, ends up as the 2nd place runner. Got around Eric Schaefer in the waning laps, who led the first portion of the event but could not hold on under strategy. AJ Green, this was a run he desperately needed after basically DNFing from both of the last 2 races. He's going to end up 4th. Craig Lounslager with a consistent top 5 finish, with Kyle Benson, his Murray Reedy Motorsports teammate, following right behind him. Brandon Banks really quiet all night long, but that's a type of performance we expect out of Banks, a quiet but always effective drive to 7th place. Ryan Pandicio, the Massachusetts driver for Skybox, is going to be 8th. Brady Cox, who took a gamble in the first sector of this race, rebounds to 9th. And Lawson Peel, Francisco, how about the fall from grace in that last run, ends up as the last driver inside tonight's top 10.
He was running around 5th with 3 laps to go, so you wonder what happened there, because that was a lot of time he lost there in the closing laps of the race. Trevor Haley able to recover to P11. Patrick Thompson will finish in the 12th spot. Colin Forrester will finish in 13th. Tyler Murray ends up being the last car on the lead lap in the 14th position. Christopher Bishop will finish in 15th. Rookie Craig Parks a lap down in 16th. Michael Newbraw rounds up in the 17th position. Curtis Kelly in 18th. Adam Alishaw will finish in the 19th spot. Jesse Prees rounds out your top 20, 68 laps down. And then looking through the rest of the field, Kevin DeLeo will finish 21st. Lance Hill will finish 22nd. And Cody Kinsey, who didn't take the green flag, will be credited with 23rd. And he did not complete a lap in this race. And we'll see, Kenneth, when Tyler gets those points done, just how crucial from what probably was a 5th or 6th place finish that would have been for Lawson Peel there with 3 laps to go, turned into a 10th place finish.
And for Moreno, as he sat 24 points behind Lawson Peel in the standings, now could call himself a driver that's a little bit closer and can call himself once more a winner. Boom goes the dynamite. Ethan Fonseca Moreno back to victory lane here at Richmond Raceway. Ethan, talk about this night. How meaningful is a win like this for you after what's felt like ages where you've had constant shots at the race win, but you weren't able to convert, whether it be through bad luck or just the situation itself? How meaningful is it to finally get back to the win column?
Oh my God, it means a lot. There was so much opportunities for me to win in multiple races, and I just completely blew it. And this one means a lot because I had to work for this one quite a bit. It wasn't easy to go battle Schaefer there or Peel or those guys up front. They made me honest there. So props to those guys. They raced fair and clean. Yeah, just glad to finally get a win again in this league.
And this run to the front, of course, came virtue of you carving your way through the top 5 early in the race for all that track position, and then the strategy kicked in. As soon as you got around Eric Schaefer, what clicked in your head, and what was the thought process? Did it change at all to, my goodness, I can probably win this thing? Or what were you thinking behind the wheel in the cockpit as you took over the lead, got in pit road cleanly without any issues, and then came out of pit road and cycled out as the race leader by about 2 seconds?
Yeah, I seen that Schaefer wasn't really taking care of his tires as much as I would. So, and I saw that he was going to pit and had missed the pit entry. So I was thinking just pit right there and he'll probably pit right after me. And I know he would probably catch me just a little bit, but I could save my tires a bit better than everybody else can. So, um, that was a strategy there. And I unfortunately made it a little bit more tough on myself than it should have been. I accidentally left auto fuel on, and I was very close on fuel, very close to not making it. And thanks to Jaden for telling me to save there. And I'm surprised with how much fuel I could save at this track. It's kind of insane, but uh, yeah, thanks to the advice from him, and I'm also really glad to bring home a 1-2 for the team. This is awesome.
The first 1-2 for KBueno Racing, your third career 4-wide racing TJ's Team Series win, and in a pivotal way, this comes in the third race of the playoffs, where going into tonight, you were 24 points behind Lawson Peel. With this win, how confident does it make you on the run to a championship as we get into what's going to be the heart of the playoff run that leads up to Homestead?
Yeah, it's gonna be really tough. These guys are not gonna make it easy. They're gonna battle like crazy and all that. So, um, just gonna need days like today to keep coming for us. To get back up there and get back in this fight and lead the points hopefully pretty soon and go win the thing hopefully.
Well, Ethan, this win was a long time coming. I remember Bristol when we called you home on your second career 4-wide win, and ever since we have told this developing story of you always getting close, but never being there quite enough. Tonight, that all changes, and all of that curse sort of wipes away, and you're finally a winner, this time in the playoffs with your third career win. Before we let you go, Ethan, is there anyone that you'd like to thank on behalf of this miraculous and hard-fought victory from Richmond?
Yes, I gotta thank team owners, sponsors. Thank my teammate. Huge thanks to him for giving me some good advice there, to keep my race going and to come home with the checkered flag at the end.
Well, Ethan, it certainly is a pleasure to say congratulations on your third career win, your first since Bristol. It comes tonight at Richmond Raceway. Ethan, congratulations once more on the W, and best of luck as we head to the World Center of Racing next Wednesday. I'm sure you're a little more alleviated after tonight.
Sir, appreciate it.
Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Paul Setup Shop, victory lane with his third career win, and one that we were waiting for such a long time. But Francisco, that doesn't close out the rest of BBR's success. Jaden Porter, the defending champ, comes home in second place, and you're with him.
And Jaden, it was one spot short of the win, but still your best result of the season. How does it feel to have driven through the field there in the second half of this race, like your teammate, to get up there with him?
Yeah, it feels good to actually have some speed to compete for a win. I don't know how close I was to Ethan, because I know the whole last stint of the race he was kind of saving fuel because he forgot to turn auto fuel off, and he was able to drive away from me at the end because he was able to save and keep his rear tires on. But it felt really good to just have winning speed for once. I haven't really had that this year.
And you mentioned the speed there. This is the best time to do it. You had a top 5 finish at Chicagoland, a 6th place finish last week at Rockingham, and a 2nd place here today. Consistency is really determining your playoffs. The points aren't official yet, but we assume you're going to be in that top 3 or top 3 battle. So as you go into Daytona, knowing that you're a lot closer now to Lawson Peel in the points, and the championship is one race closer to you than previously, how do you go about that strategy going into Daytona in terms of, do you stay at the front? Do you try and ride it around at the back? What goes through your mind knowing that Daytona is now the next race, and what strategy you're choosing to implement?
I don't know yet, because I've used all 3 strategies: go at the front, ride at the back, ride in the middle, and I don't think I've got top 15 at either super speedway. So I don't really know what I'm gonna do next week. Usually my goal would be to run at the front the whole time, but if it becomes a field mileage race, you might as well stay at the back or stay in line. So I don't know yet. Just try to survive, I guess.
That's certainly what everyone tries to do, and it's easier said than done, Jaden. But for tonight, you did get that top 2 finish, a much needed finish. Who was all a part of the effort in helping make this possible for you?
I want to thank everyone at KBueno Racing. Getting a 1-2 finish is kind of crazy. I expected Ethan to go up there and race for the win, but after practice on Monday, I thought I was gonna be like 7th place the whole race. But get 1-2 is great. I know you two were probably really excited about that. My brother and his friends were watching. A few other friends were watching Splash and Go graphics for his paint scheme. And I guess we'll go on to Daytona now.
Well, again, really good job on the excellent result here tonight, Jaden. And we wish you luck going into Daytona on that championship battle.
All right, thank you guys.
That's Jaden Porter, the Louisville, Kentucky native, who finishes tonight in 2nd place. And then we'll turn over to the 3rd place finisher. That is Eric Schaefer. I'm with him now. And Eric, of course, this race went successfully for you at the jump of this race. 101 laps led out of the 167. Just talk us through that second half strategy call where it looked like you guys were all good on fuel from that one stop, and then it was just on tires from there on out.
Yeah, the problem was I actually took too much fuel there and caused the car to get too tight. Yeah, just not thinking. Just took way too much fuel and just screwed up there. Messed up the run there. But all in all, points night. Led the most laps, got the fastest lap, so that's bonus points there. Yeah, just a little frustrated, man. I was expecting Jaden to race a little cleaner than that. I didn't know he was going to run me over, so next time he won't get by so easy.
And here at Richmond, I remember that Lawson Peel said last week he foresaw you leading a bunch of laps, and while that rings true tonight, of course, with the 101, I mean, this track is very different categorically from the other types of Richmonds that we've raced before in this series. It was really the first time we've run it under the daytime conditions. Did you take any sort of notes from that? Did it feel any sort of different drastically from the last several Richmond races we've had?
Not really. It's just, we run so little fuel in this car at 75%. It doesn't, the fixed setups that we run are not made for less fuel, so it just automatically starts off tighter. But no, it felt like a normal race. It just the temperature kept fluctuating. The wind was definitely messing with people off of turn 4, causing a little havoc there, causing the car to get tight, push up towards the wall. But no, it didn't feel much different than a normal night race. It just the main thing is the temperature kept fluctuating the most.
You were 2nd place in the standings going into tonight's race. I'd imagine that it will be somewhere around that same ballpark where you'll be top 3 going into Daytona. What's the thought process now? How do you move forward from the 3rd place finish here at Richmond to sort of piggyback off of that for the rest of these playoffs?
I don't know, because next week I may be gone. I don't even know if I'll be able to be here next week. I'm supposed to be out to sea on a ship, on a Navy ship, so I don't know. Hopefully I can come back after that and get some good finishes and remain up in the top 4 or 5. So, but I don't know. Next week's gonna kill me.
Well, regardless, we hope it all goes well. Regardless if you're able to make it to the racetrack to next week or whether it be 2 weeks from now at Sonoma for the first and only road course of the playoffs. Eric, before we let you go on the top 3 finish from Virginia, anybody in particular you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, shout out to you and your colleague in the booth there for broadcasting a great broadcast as y'all always do, man. I really do appreciate y'all for that. And shout out to all the DBR guys and Paul Setup Shop.
Hey, give some respect to Francisco. Give a little respect to...
No, I said your colleague. Francisco gets a lot of respect. Trust me. I got people all the time commenting on the stream about how good a job you guys do, man. They really do appreciate it. They always comment like it's watching a real broadcast of a real race, man. Like the amount of information that you two give out, people can't believe what y'all do. So it's always amazing how both of y'all can go back and remember all your notes from the years previous and everything else. So we appreciate everything you and Francisco do, man.
Well, Eric, as always, we really appreciate the kind words, and we have to echo it the same to yourself on how much fun it's been for us to cover your talent, to cover your driving style, to cover all the races that you've taken part of in this series. And we certainly hope that regardless of whether you miss Daytona or not, that we wish you the best of luck moving forward in these playoffs. Thank you for the time. Congratulations on the P3 tonight from Richmond. Hopefully we see you at Daytona, but if not, then we'll see you at Sonoma. Best of luck.
All right, boys. Thank you.
Eric Schaefer closes out the top 3 here tonight from the virtual Richmond Raceway. Well, Francisco, this was certainly one to highlight. It was a really clean race from Richmond Raceway over the course of the evening, and now we get to move forward to Daytona, which if there's anyone that goes into that race with so much solace, it's going to be Ethan Fonseca Moreno, a story that finally ends tonight. If we're talking about a curse that has struck him since Bristol, he gets his first win since in dominating fashion near the second half.
He was able to get that long-awaited victory he's been waiting for since Bristol, and he's had many opportunities, like you said, but just things haven't gone his way. And looking now at the updated points that we have here, Kenneth, thanks you to Tyler Murray, it does have Ethan Fonseca now second in the point standings, 10 points behind Lawson Peel going into Daytona. Eric Schaefer has taken over that third position, 12 points behind Lawson Peel, and Jaden Porter sits 17 points behind Lawson Peel. And rounding out your top 5 is Kyle Benson, 21 back, and we'll eventually next week get the exact order and how many points every driver is from there on out. But those first couple of positions, certainly very much the case. AJ Green still in a difficult position as far as points, so going into Daytona, he's going to need some of that magic. He's won there before, and he's going to have to try and do it again to try and get himself back into the hunt. But the top 4 or so drivers that we have in this series, Kenneth, are from those 2 teams we've talked about all season long, DBR and BBR, and they have 2 representatives each in that top 4 going into Daytona, 17 points apart. That's certainly a gap that at Daytona is not safe for any of them.
It is not, but it does mean, Francisco, that the cream has risen to the top as we move forward into the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs for Season 6, which leaves us with one race next up to go, and that's going to be at the World Center of Racing. We head to Daytona for a look at our Super Speedway playoff race that'll come your way next Wednesday, March 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern. And frankly enough, we've come around the same time as March Madness, so this is our very version of March Madness. You won't want to miss it. A Super Speedway race next Wednesday. Again, that'll be 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can find it right here on the KBueno Racing Network. Well, that would do it for our coverage of the playoffs from Richmond Raceway. A huge congratulations to Ethan Fonseca Moreno on his 3rd career 4-wide win. For Tyler Murray and everyone from the admin team and race council, for Charlie Beyer and Keelan Belshaw on behalf of the KBueno Racing Network, and on behalf of my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Henrico County. We'll head to the beaches of Daytona next Wednesday for some playoff Super Speedway racing.